Well, especially in Columbia. Lived there for 7 years, so I feel you, man. I feel the pain. It's a different kind of heat down there than it is up here. It's hot, but it ain't like Columbia. Columbia's different kind of hot. I tell everybody that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. All right. So, hey, I appreciate you joining us today. And I wanted to talk a little bit with you about not necessarily the recruits that are going to be at the camp that's up there with Dabo Sweeney this weekend, but just kind of the vibe that goes into that. But before we get into that, I was following some of the stuff on your website about Arch Manning up at Clemson. It's amazing the vibe that is around a
but the national media as well, to just see this 16-year-old throw the football. And by the way, he didn't disappoint, as you saw in that one video that KJ Henry released.
Yeah, but that was kind of my big thing is like and maybe I'm just one of these people. I understand that recruiting is important, but he's 16 years old, and it's kind of hard for me to get behind what a 16-year-old is going to do. You know?
Yeah. Well, what I tell you to do is, and I'm not a big recruiting guy. I told you that it's not my level of expertise. I'm more about the team and the roster and everything that's going on with the current players. But I do know Archie Manning. Okay. And so I've watched a ton of film on Archie Manning throughout my life, and especially when he's at Ole Miss. And if you go watch Archie Manning's old Miss films, right? And then you turn on this film of Arch, of all the Mannings, that's who he reminds me of. The way, not only the way he throws the ball, but the way he runs, the way the way he approaches the line of scrimmage. I mean, it looks like Archie Manning coming up there, and that's who he reminds me of. And I've always had this opinion, as great as Peyton and Eli were, I've always said Archie was the best because he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he played on one of the worst franchises in the history of professional football.
Yeah,
that tells you a lot about Archie Manning, the kind of player he was. And remember, he's the one player Bear Bryant said that he was scared to play.
Well, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal, So, and so he's got all the intangibles of all those other Mannings as well. Don't get me wrong, and with his footwork and all that, because I'm sure he's learned from Uncle Peyton and Uncle Eli. But and of course his dad was a pretty darn good football player himself in his own right. So he's just he's different, man. And so when you see him, you understand. It's like you did when you saw Trevor Lawrence. You just knew there was something different about him. The same thing with Deshaun Watson. Just something different about those guys. They're not your typical 16-year-old coming into camp. These guys are different, and they have a different stature about them. And once you see them play, you kind of get the gist of that.
All right. Well, but I wanted to get into it really quick here. One more thing. It's sort of on the building of the program that's up there. It's what is the event called this weekend where there's going to be recruits on campus? It's like it's not the cookout, is it? It's just a what is it?
It's Elite 11 retreat is what they call it. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, the retreat. Yeah. I mean, how important are some of these like having things like that up there to the Clemson program?
Well, it's big because if you look right now, Clemson only has 4 commitments, right, for the 2022 class. And the reason that's the case is because of COVID. Clemson's big selling point and Dabo Sweeney's big selling point is getting them to Clemson, because he always feels like once he gets a kid on campus and he gets mom and dad here and they get to see it, and then, Junior's there and he likes it, he gets that sense, that family atmosphere. It all seems to work together, and the family these families come in and they kind of all get that, and they see what Clemson's about and what the culture is about, that coach. Because he has to hear something, that people don't know about Dabo Swinney when he does these camps and stuff, right? These are actual camps. These aren't combines. These aren't like worrying about what their long jump is, or can they, can they run the 40 in this time, or, what's their broad jump? There's no measurables done at all. None of that stuff's done. All they do is they do football drills. And they're regular campers there too, guys that are not ever going to be recruited by anybody. They just want to be better high school football players there. And they're going through these drills with these coaches. They're being taught by not only the Clemson on the field coaches, such as Brandon Streeter and Tony Elliott and CJ Spiller and all those guys, but they're also, and Brent Venables, they're also being taught by the current players. And the parents, like Kathleen will make an appearance, and so will Brent Venables' wife, and because they all help out. Everybody helps out. It's like a family thing, and it's like all the staff, the Clemson football staff, from the secretaries to the photo people to anybody, they're all there helping out and doing whatever they can to help the program. And I think when recruits and families come in and they see that, it just really, really tells them that this is a family atmosphere where everybody does everything together. And Dabo's done a great job. And then you throw in just Clemson on top of it, and it kind of sells itself.
One other thing too, and I remember going to ACC kickoff a couple of years ago, and I was talking with the Boston College head coach, and he explained that you can't really use former players to recruit because of NCAA stuff, but CJ Spiller's on the coaching staff, so he can give you all aspects of it. Hey, you come here, this is what happens. By the way, I played in the NFL too. I mean, that's a heck of a recruiting tool right there.
Yeah, well, you got CJ Spiller, you got Tyler Grisham, you got other guys that, Cole Stout's there now, and he was in the program. He's an analyst now. You got several other players. I think I counted one time, like on Dabo's staff, I think like 23 or 24 people on his staff are former players. And so they're doing something on the staff. So when the recruits come in, those guys can talk to them about the Clemson culture. And these are guys that play for Dabo. These aren't just, guys that played at Clemson, but these are guys who actually played for Dabo. So they understand Coach Swinney, what his vision is. And so when they come on campus, all those guys are available to be spoken to. They can speak to them and talk to them and all those kind of things. And so that's a selling point for Dabo. There's no doubt about it. And it's smart on his point, because that's, again, selling that Clemson family. Like, hey, look, you come here and, you're part of the football forever, as long as you want to be. And having a guy like CJ Spiller kind of lead that way and lead that charge, and Tyler Grisham, it just adds on to it.
Will Vandervort from the Clemson Insider joins us here on the program this afternoon. We appreciate his time. The transfer portal watch is on, and what I mean by that is that we've seen where Georgia has went out and got. It was almost like they went shopping, and hey, why can't we have an all ACC cornerback, and why can't we have the kid that was supposed to be the next Kyle Pitts? We'll just get those two guys and then go from there. Do you think that that's going to be something that eventually Coach Swinney is going to do? I mean, especially with the backup quarterback stuff going on up there.
I don't know. To be honest, I don't think it's going to be something he does regularly. I don't think you're going to see, unless it totally is a need. Now, let's keep in mind, Georgia did have a need at two of those positions, really at all three. All three guys they brought in. They brought in, two veteran cornerbacks and a veteran tight end / wide receiver, however you want to say it. So those are, they needed playmakers on offense, and they got one, and they needed some defensive backs. So you kind of understand it, and that's kind of been Coach Swinney's thing. He says, they're not, what he told us during the spring was they're not going to go looking for somebody to just bring in. It's going to be something where it's going to have to be a guy who's an all conference caliber player, who can come in if they need help at that certain position, you can come in and help right away. Not somebody who's just, they're coming to go get just to go get. So he's going to be very selective on what they bring in. So don't be looking for, 5, 6, 7 transfers to come in and during the year. That's not going to happen at Clemson. Maybe when he starts doing it, you'll see 1 or 2 sprinkled here or there, but that's about it, And so when you look at the quarterback situation, yeah, that's where we thought they would go, but we're here and now, Puperchan's kind of coming along better than they thought he was going to. He's not in a boot anymore. He's out of his boot. He's walking around normal. He's been helping out with camp this week. It looks good on that. He's still got some more rehab to go, obviously. I don't see him really getting back until like maybe mid-September, early October. But I think they're thinking if they can get through the Georgia game, then maybe they're going to be okay. And they still believe that they're going to get those 2 freshman baseball players. So we'll see what's going to happen here.
Do you think that with kind of the questions there at backup quarterback, that will affect the way that they call games with their starter? Because, he's a young man that can make plays with his feet, but they may try to keep him from taking shots.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I guess, again, it depends on if Bubba Chandler and Will Taylor are able to get on campus, right? And they're not playing baseball somewhere. So that's kind of the $1 million question. I think because they're playing Georgia, and then, Rob, let's just be honest, after Georgia, is there anybody else on Clemson's schedule that can challenge them until they get to the ACC championship game? No. That answer is no. So maybe you throw everything you have into Georgia, you take a chance and roll the dice and play the game you want to play with DJ against Georgia, get through that, get a win, and then after that, you kind of scale him back until you get into the postseason, the ACC championship game. And by that time, Puperchan will be back. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do here with the whole backup quarterback situation. Do you roll the dice and not bring anybody in? Just going to take your chances to see if Chandler and Taylor come in? If not, then that means you're going to have 2 walk-ons as your backup quarterbacks. Yeah,
I'm laughing because that's tough, man. I mean, you have one play, and I think back to Tungaviola at Alabama. I mean, he got injured in basically a garbage play in a game that they were up huge in, and it ended up affecting Alabama's season for the rest of the year. So something like that happens, man. It's just one play could completely tear up your entire year. It's just
no, you're absolutely correct. I mean, now let's be honest, with the talent Clemson has everywhere else, if they lose to Georgia or if they get through Georgia and you hope it doesn't happen, but if DJ were to get injured, probably Clemson's going to be okay in those other games until they get to the postseason. So I don't think regular season wise, other than Georgia, it could affect Clemson's season, if that makes sense. I just think they're so talented everywhere else that they can bring in a game manager to get through those other 10 games. If you follow what I'm saying, there's 11 games. But obviously they're not going to be able to play for a national championship though, without a DJ Uyunglele. I mean, that's the key for them if they're going to win a national championship or play for one. They have to have him healthy. And so that's why I said, how do you roll that dice? Do you roll the dice and just take your chances, or do you go to the transfer portal and bring somebody in who's got experience and, you got a reliable backup?
All right. Speaking of the transfer portal there for a second, just to kind of turn to Georgia for a minute, they brought in these guys that are veterans to play in their secondary, but the other end of the transfer portal is that these guys have never played together. The first snap for Kendrick and the young man from West Virginia and the other fellow is going to be in Charlotte. I think that you'll have a talented secondary, but they have to play together to build some consistency. I mean, I think there's something to that.
No, I think you're right. And I think that's going to be the question going into that game. But does Clemson's offensive line show enough moxie to protect DJ to where he can get the ball to those receivers so they can challenge that secondary and do what you said, is test them. A lot of people keep asking me, like, does Georgia having Darion Kendrick now, is that going to affect Clemson's game plan? I don't think it will, because Tony Elliott knows the weaknesses of Darion Kendrick probably better than Darion Kendrick does. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so he's going to know what to do and what not to do against Darion. And I don't think they're good. Obviously, being DJ is a different quarterback than Trevor. It's going to be a different kind of offensive system than what they had. And he didn't participate in any spring practice. Remember, he got let go, released from the team the second day into spring practice. So
right.
he saw nothing as far as how they were going to use him. And so I think that doesn't matter at all. And so I think when you look at this matchup, Clemson's going to try early to do what you just said. They're going to test them and see if those guys gotten any continuity. They know they're talented, but can they work together? It's the first game of the season, so they're going to be brand new. And Clemson's got some receivers that have all worked together with a quarterback who did play last year and understands them. So I say that's an advantage to Clemson. The key, though, for Clemson in that game, and without a doubt, the two biggest keys is the line of scrimmage. You know, Georgia's defensive front is nasty, and Clemson's offensive line is not. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that matchup turns out.
Will Vandervort from the Clemson Insider joining us here on the program today. And as always, I appreciate it. I know you guys are going to have a coverage of any of the news that comes out over the weekend as far as the Elite 11 camp up there at Clemson.
Yeah, it's going to be wall-to-wall coverage. We've been having it the last 2 weeks with camp going on. Gavin and Sam, our two recruiting guys, have done a great job covering everything. So there'll be tons of that going on. You may see a commitment or two this week. I don't know. I'm not a recruiting guy, but generally Dabo gets somebody or two or three after this. But definitely for the next 3 or 4 weeks here, I think it's going to be a busy time when it comes to Clemson recruiting because, they're not going to stay at 4 commitments for the rest of the summer. I can tell you that.
And by the way, before we let you go, I'm jealous of you because, a friend of the program here too, you get to do a podcast with a guy that may be in the College Football Hall of Fame. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, my buddy Levon Kirkland. Yeah, that's awesome. I actually gave him a call as soon as I was told. I was out at camp last week, and Ross Taylor told me about it. And so I gave Levon an immediate phone call and told him congrats. And, he was surprised by it. He had no idea that was coming. And, he just feels pretty honored by it. And he said something the other day to me. He says, yeah, I was looking at the list and I thought, you know what? At first, I didn't think I deserved to be on that list. But then he said, I saw the guys. He said, I played against most of those guys and I thought I handled myself pretty well against them. So, yeah, I feel like I deserve to be on that list. I told him, you do. You definitely do, dude.
He is so humble. But, if you go back and even just look at the stuff with the Steelers, and I know you're a Steelers fan. He was absolutely nasty. Knock your head off nasty out there, He played inside linebacker with the Steelers. Remember, he played outside linebacker at Clemson, but he's a real smart guy, so they moved him inside. He picked up on it really fast. He's a bigger guy. He got really big in the NFL, but he still ran with like that 4.4, 4.5 speed. And, and that's what made him such a great inside linebacker. He really changed the inside linebacker position to the way we know it today to be. And, so he's a big reason why you see the kind of inside linebackers you see in today's game. Levon was one of the first one. At one point, he was considered the best inside linebacker in the NFL. And, he was great, man, when he played for the Steelers. He was great when he played at Clemson. Was an All-American here, consensus All-American, and then went on to be a second-round draft pick with the Steelers. And so he had a great college career, and I think he had even a better NFL career. And maybe one day he'll get to the Pro Football Hall of Fame too. I think he deserves it, but we'll wait and see. LeVon will never tell you that though. He'll always say he doesn't deserve it. He'll never do that. He was on the All-Decade team for the '90s. He could be the first Clemson player to be in both Hall of Fames, and that's the way it'll be.
That's true. That's true because Brian Dawkins is not in the College Football Hall of Fame yet. So that's true.
Yeah, if he makes both, but still good stuff there. All right, so the ClemsonInsider.com, they can find you on Twitter where?
At Steeler Will. Also, they can find us at Clemson Insider on Twitter, and then, of course, our Facebook page, The Clemson Insider on Facebook. So lots of ways to find us. We're a free website. So if you need recruiting news and you want it, like I said, Sam and Gavin, our two recruiting guys, they do a great job. And so, they're all top of everything. So if you need some recruiting news and you don't have to pay for it, that's the best part, come to the Clemson Insider.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the program, man. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Talk to you later.
All right, there you go. Will Vandervort from the Clemson Insider joining us today, talking a little bit about the camp up at the Elite 11 camp up at Clemson. He talks about there's going to be some folks that may commit. There's a guy that's a 4-star player out of Missouri, a big defensive back that I read somewhere that's probably going to be the guy that will commit over the weekend. But we'll keep up with that. Be sure to follow them on Twitter, and we'll keep you up to date with us as well at foxsportsradio1400.com. All right, quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 12-team college football playoff and the way it would have affected the past, I think it's 10 years is the write-up that I've got on it. Some of the matchups that were out there, very interesting. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll have more for you here on the Friday edition of The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. It's nice to see Beg and Megan here. I was wondering if he was going to accept Gator Tooth's challenge and put up his eyebrows. Wonder if that's going to happen or not, or if he's going to be a yellow dog. We're going to refer to you as Yellow Dog if you don't put him up there. When I play Tom Jones, they boot my stream off the air, Jimmy. It sucks. They'll mute my entire stream if I play any Tom Jones. It's insane. The algorithms have gotten so good. Used to be Tom Jones every Friday. But, yeah, that's kind of tough. What's up, Edwin? My coach who's helping me in my training where we're going to throw midgets in 2025 down at LSU. I found a midget, and he's helping me with my training to throw him. We're going to have a midget throwing contest. Not a joke. Oh, you want me to sing? No. I can get after it. Let's not. Just because I look like a damn caveman does not mean that I cannot carry a tune, sir. I'm pretty confident in that. I can hold my own. Hold my own. That's right. I'm going to be the best gnome tosser ever. This is not a joke. We're tossing. I've been invited by a bunch of LSU fans down to LSU when LSU plays Clemson, and we are going to have a gnome tossing. It's not a joke. We are tossing an actual gnome. Yep, that's happening. That's why Coach over there, who's coached up a lot of folks, is helping me with my training to make sure that I want to make sure that I get the proper lifting methods and throwing methods. Because, I mean, I think you got to throw like this. So I got to be able to work. I'm guessing it's the lats and everything else. We'll see. A little gnome tossing. That's what's going to happen. So I don't know who's going to go to LSU, man. I don't think the Oregon State coach should go, but I don't think he should be coaching anywhere, in my opinion. But that's just me. Kind of talked about that before. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us here on the show today. And I just found out something that's kind of been bugging me a little bit. LSU was going to hire Pat Casey, the baseball coach at Oregon State, to replace their legendary coach they have there now. But apparently Pat Casey has opted out of that job. You know what? If you're an LSU fan, You should clap your hands, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, Pat Casey is the guy that had Luke Heimlich on his team. For those that don't know who Luke Heimlich is, he was an ace pitcher for Oregon State. Can't argue with his talent on the field, but Luke Heimlich agreed to a conviction because he molested a 6-year-old over and over and over again. That's something that you should never be on a team anywhere, and I hold Pat Casey accountable for that because he had the guy on his team, and he knew that this guy had molested a 6-year-old. So congratulations to LSU, because you're not going to have that guy for your coach. Anyone would be a better hire for the coach than what Pat Casey was, simply because I question his character. If that makes me a bad person because I don't want someone coaching a team that thinks, oh, it's okay. We can, if you've molested a 6-year-old several times and you admitted to it, there's a spot for you on this team. LSU folks should literally be jumping through hoops. Seriously, what a great way for them to go into the weekend. We don't get Pat Casey. That's awesome. And I mean, and that's real. I mean, all of that happened. It's not me making up things. Look it up online. It's right there. All right, let's give you a baseball update really quick here. East Carolina, and Blake said this earlier in the chat room, which you can join, by the way. Go to the Fox Sports Radio 1400 Facebook page. It's right there for you. East Carolina hadn't been shut out all season until today. They lose to Vanderbilt 2-0 in game 1 of that Nashville Super Regional. In the top of the first inning, the seventh ranked Stanford has a 3-0 lead over Texas Tech in the Lubbock Super Regional. Other games today: NC State and Arkansas will play game 1 in Fayetteville. Ole Miss and Arizona play game 1 tonight in the Tucson Regional. Tomorrow, it opens up with the other 4 teams. You've got Dallas Baptist and Virginia right here in Columbia, which I've said, hey, you got to go and check out Virginia. They got Kenny Powers pitching for them. Go and check that out. That is at 12 o'clock. Game 2 of the Nashville Regional is also at noon, followed by number 6 Notre Dame and number 11 Mississippi State. That is a 2 o'clock first pitch there out in the Starkville Super Regional. You've also got Texas Tech and Stanford tomorrow, Arkansas and NC State tomorrow, LSU and Tennessee, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. They're burning down things up at Tennessee because nobody can get tickets. It is seriously, look at that up. I mean, it's like $400 to $500 a ticket on the secondary market to watch LSU and Tennessee tomorrow night. Late matchups tomorrow include South Florida playing Texas. South Florida's kind of the Cinderella story there. And Arizona and Ole Miss, as that's the nightcap in the Tucson Regional. Jerome says, does their pitcher own a pretty sweet jet ski? It would not surprise me if he owned a jet ski. I mean, he's enamored with Dippin' Dots. It seems like he would, he would be all about the jet ski. So there's your update on college baseball. It's a good day if you are a fan of LSU, because Pat Casey is not coming to coach your program. Anytime that you have someone that supports someone that did what Luke Heimlich did, that's awesome. Why he stayed at Oregon State says a little bit about their program too. Their athletic director should be fired, in my opinion. If you know that's going on, he should have been fired on the spot when he admitted that he knew what was going on. He knew that this had happened. And I'm all about giving people a second chance, but not when it comes to that. Not when you admit to it. Nope. All right, I'm going to get into the 12-team playoff and how it would have looked over the past 10 years. We'll get into that when we come back. This is The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. We're going to call you a yellow dog if you don't put your eyebrows up against Gator Tooth. He already said he's going to do it. Are you in or not, Beggin' Megan? Yes or no? For those that don't know, on the Rob and Kale show the other night, Gator Tooth said, hey, I will I'll put up my eyebrows. And now Beggin' Megan is now officially Yellow Dog. Unlike Gator Tooth, I actually have a career. I have to speak in front of many people on a weekly basis, and he has to have his eyebrows. Yeah, people look at you and think, hey, look at those eyebrows. Come on, we'll draw you some eyebrows up there, buddy. Typical Georgia fan, scared to death. Yellow Dog Megan. That's right. Paint them back on. I honestly thought you would do it, Beggin' Megan. I honestly thought you would do it. That's some funniness right there. We're gonna give you till Sunday to reconsider, Beggin' Megan. Are you not confident that your team can beat Florida? I mean, you've got top 3 talent. You got top 3 talent. You should be able to win, right? I mean, yeah, well, your coach wears a lady's visor on the sideline, though. I guess he would be, man, I tell you what, you want to get Beggin' Megan off the Kirby Smart train? Let him lose his eyebrows. Oh, my goodness. That would be terrible. I would feel pain for you, sir. I would feel pain for you. That's fair, Jimmy. That's fair. But Jimmy, you put up your eyebrows. Not for the Gamecocks, though. Shave his legs? What the heck is that all about? Why would you shave your legs? What's good's that gonna do? Nobody can see that. You can shave his head. Maybe we'll go with that. You can just tell people I wanted to go bald. You can blame it on anything. That would be the coolest thing ever. We'll give you until Sunday, and maybe you can come up with something better. But Gator Tooth put his eyebrows up quick. Just saying. Jimmy, I shaved my eyebrows for charity 2 years ago. For a fat sum of money to the charity too, by the way. Community Options, the charity that I work with that builds homes for people with autism and gives them a life away from where they can actually have their own lives. We raised like close to $3,000. Someone gave $500 for my eyebrows, shaved them off right there in the middle of the bar. Did not care. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. A report from The Athletic. Got to give these folks some credit on the research here because they did it rather quickly. So they looked at from 2011 until 2020, basically a 10-year period, and they said that 44 programs would have reached the college football playoff at least once over that 10-year period. And their theory is that's why the NCAA is you know what? Or the CFP is you know what? That's why we're going to schedule this up. So some of the matchups, if you look back, we kind of already went over the matchups for last year. Cincinnati would be 8, Georgia would be 9, Notre Dame would host at home against Coastal. Florida would have Iowa State at home, and Texas A&M would actually have Indiana at home. This was in 2020. So Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, and Ohio State would get byes. That's the way that they said that under the current projected system, that's the way that it would go. So some interesting stuff there. In 2019, this gets interesting too. Wisconsin would be at home against Florida. Georgia would be the 5 seed and would host Memphis. Baylor would get Penn State as the 7 seed at home. Oregon would play Utah in a 6-11 matchup for the 2019 season. Of course, LSU, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Clemson all within the top, be the top 4 seeds. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. According to the projections, Alabama would not have made the college football playoff in 2019 with the way that the system was set up. They would not have made the college football playoff. So very interesting stuff there. You would still have, 3 teams from the SEC, but it would be 2 teams from the East and LSU. So interesting stuff there. Back to 2018, Alabama's the 1, Clemson's the 2, Oklahoma's the 3, Ohio State's at 4. UCF would be the 8th seed. They would play Washington at home. We would finally get to shut UCF's mouth about the national title thing. Number 5 seed would be Notre Dame welcoming in Penn State. Michigan and Florida would be the 7-10 matchup. Georgia and LSU would play each other in the 6-11 game at Georgia for the opportunity to play the 3 seed Oklahoma. So interesting stuff there with that. On that front, you've got 4 SEC teams in the mix there for the 2018 thing. In 2017, Clemson was 1, Ohio State's 4, Oklahoma's 2. Georgia would be the 3 seed. On the rest of the brackets shakes up like this. Southern Cal's the 8 seed. They would play Penn State. Alabama would be the 5 seed. They'd play the 12 seed UCF. Auburn and Miami, a 7-10 matchup. Wisconsin and Washington. This is the first time you see 2 ACC teams in the mix. You have 4 SEC teams in the mix there as well. So interesting the way that's set up in 2017. In 2016, you look at this, and Alabama's the 1, followed by Clemson, Washington, and Penn State. The 8-9 matchup would be Wisconsin and Southern Cal. Ohio State would play Western Michigan. This is where it gets interesting because you've got some of these G5 teams that would actually be in the mix and would make themselves available basically for a spot. Oklahoma and Colorado are there, along with Michigan, and Florida State would be the 11th seed. So, yeah, that's some interesting stuff there, the way that they went back and looked at it. So, the 10-year playoff appearances sorted out by conference. The ACC checks in at 15, followed the Big 12 and Pac-12 have 17. 23 spots for the Big 10, 32 for the SEC. Group of 5 spots have 13, and independents would check in with 3. The 3 independents would be obviously all the Notre Dame matchups. And speaking of the stuff with the ACC here, they actually write about that. They had Clemson or Florida State in this playoff every year, but we're a 1-bid league in 6 of the 10 seasons. So when you really stop and look at it, if you win your games and do what you're supposed to do in this format, your conference should be, if you're one of those folks that likes the whole conference setup, I gave you just the 5 years back to 2016. I know that everyone looks at it from the perspective of, well, there's so many SEC teams that are there. Okay, that's great. But from the 5 years back, you've had 3 teams win national titles. 2 of them to Clemson, 2 of them to Alabama, 1 of them to LSU. So the idea that that only the championship football comes from the SEC is not necessarily true. So interesting stuff there. I don't like the idea of the 12-team playoff. I like the 4-team set better, but there's games in there that I really don't want anything to do with. I don't want to watch Western Michigan play Ohio State. Does anybody really want to see that? Other than the 800 Western Michigan alumni? I don't want to see that. I don't want to see these matchups against teams that realistically have no chance of winning. I want the best teams. The absolute best teams. That's what I want. If it's, hey, Rob gets to pick out what he wants. Alan says the ACC won 0 bowl games last year. Yeah, but the problem with that is that you go at it from this perspective. Bowl games don't matter when SEC teams lose them. When Wake Forest hangs 55 on Texas A&M, the bowl game doesn't matter. That's a bowl game. They didn't care. If Georgia would have lost to Cincinnati last year, it would have been, well, everybody just quit and the COVID year and everything else. The bowl game stuff only matters to the SEC fans when the ACC or the Big Ten doesn't really do well in the bowl schedule. Other than that, if they do well, we dominated in the bowl games. The Texas-Georgia matchup, they seem to forget that. That was a bowl game that Georgia lost. Oh, that was a bowl game. We didn't care. It's the same thing. Same thing across the board. I just loved hearing that stuff. It's kind of crazy, though. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. If you want to talk about that and what they're doing there, do you think the little guy deserves a chance? Should Western Michigan, from a couple of years ago, have the opportunity to play for the national title? We'll entertain those calls. Blake says, do I think the same about baseball and basketball postseason? Basketball is completely different. I think that a team from the Ohio Valley Conference can make the Sweet 16. I think Murray State is a team that can do that pretty much every other year. They're great teams. Basketball is completely different. It's a 5. You can have 2 playmakers and maneuver your way into the Sweet 16. So basketball is completely different. Baseball, on the other hand, I'll give you my thoughts on that when we come back. This is The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yes, Fireball, I do live in Columbia. What did I say that was untrue, Megan? I have no clue what I said that was untrue. Clemson won 2 national titles in the past 5 years. You can Google that. That information is there. I don't know what I'm telling untruths. Just because I look at things from a perspective that doesn't have the Georgia Bulldog nuts in my face doesn't mean that I what I'm saying is not true. So anyway, there's that. So, give you guys a look behind the scenes today. We have this thing that iHeart has broken into different teams as far as their emails go. I'm part of the production team here at iHeart, right? So there was an email sent out to the production team for a recording session with a client, and it was this client that was in Mississippi or whatever. But they sent it to everyone. I think there's 200 people that are on the production email, and everybody, it was recording at 1:00 today, and everybody's like, can't do it, blah, blah, blah. They didn't even really stop to look at it. So everybody's replying all, and it's literally hundreds of emails of people just losing their mind. Well, I'm not recording this guy today, and blah, 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 blah. It is insane. It is insane. The ACC should hire me for what? I'm not a media relations homer for the ACC. I just don't believe that the SEC invented football. Other teams have done it, have won national titles. Ask Alabama what happened to them the last time they played Clemson. Did something that your team's never done. Not in the modern era. Not in the modern era. Georgia would have burnt the city down if they would have beat Alabama by 4 touchdowns in the college football playoff. We just have a sign that said Athens used to be here. That's what would happen. Jerome, if you're watching, I got a story for you here in a moment. Some UFC stuff you'll appreciate. Final segment of the rundown this afternoon here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. My name is Rob Sanders, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is another call if you'd like to join us today. Should the little guy get an opportunity in the college football playoff? We'll talk about that and a couple of other things. First, a Tim Tebow update. Urban Meyer was told the Florida Times Union when they asked him about the status of Tim Tebow, he says, you wish you could see and do more. In spring football, you have full pads and you can really evaluate, but it's kind of tough right now. He used one word to describe Tebow's play: decent. Oh, Tim has done a decent job. We all know this is a new position for him. He's a great teammate in the locker room. I can see everybody getting along. We have good chemistry on our team, but he's picked it up decently. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Not knocking Tim Tebow here, but making the NFL roster. There's only so many guys. All right, final story of the day. We kind of talked about this last week where Floyd Mayweather fought, who was the guy? Logan Paul. And it was a disaster of a fight. Logan Paul was like, I think he's like 6'2", 195 pounds. And he goes into the ring with Floyd Mayweather. And they talk about Mayweather got caught grief because they were like, you should have knocked this guy out. If you watch the fight, I mean, it looked like Mayweather was carrying him. I mean, that's just the way that it is from what I watched. But you could tell that Mayweather was the more skilled fighter. Okay. Now, I'm not somebody that buys into the whole Floyd Mayweather thing. The guy's 50-0, whatever. But Dana White was asked about if he would like to see the 44-year-old Mayweather retire rather than taking massive paydays to fight novices. White says, I'd love to see Floyd retire. He's had an incredible career, and to do these types of fights, it's silly. As for the possibility of Logan Paul getting into the octagon, White isn't ruling that out just yet. He's still skeptical, but he says he's allowed novices to compete before. He says, I don't know, man. I don't know. Here's the thing. Not to say that I haven't taken a guy that's been 0-0 in the UFC and done those type of fights before, but I just don't know. The article says Mayweather lost respect for not only taking the fight, which he did, but having to go all 8 rounds with Logan Paul. Paul, on the other hand, looks at it from the perspective of, hey, I went 8 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. That's what he's putting out there on his YouTube channel. Just saying. That's the thing. Going to be the next thing, though. Is Logan Paul going to be a guy that is going to get into the octagon? I don't know how that's going to happen, but I just the vibe of Logan Paul. Like, look, Floyd Mayweather has been doing this to us for a while. He's been ducking fighters forever. He's been setting up matchups that are just, awesome for him. The Conor McGregor fight, where they basically cussed each other up and down the world, all over touring about it, and then go into the ring. And McGregor looked good, but, Mayweather he's just the better fighter on the boxing front. And you kind of knew that. But my thing is that I don't know if I want to see Logan Paul fight in the UFC. Now, if they get him in there and they do it on like a developmental deal, or better yet, the best way, and I'm sure Dana White has thought of this because he's a lot more brilliant than I am. You have a season of The Ultimate Fighter coming up. Tell Logan Paul, you want to fight in the UFC, come earn it. Fight in The Ultimate Fighter. That's the best way to do it. If you really want to fight guys in the UFC, that's the way to do it. Now, I understand that people are, the whole thing with Mayweather and stuff like that. And, Mayweather's going to carry him for 8 rounds and all that. I can guarantee you that if he gets into the octagon with some of the people that he's been running his mouth to on Twitter and saying stuff to on in some of his podcasts, they will knock him into next month. Flat out. I don't care how tough of a guy he is. They will knock him out. Seriously. So I like the idea of him being in the Ultimate Fighter and working his way up. But you know what? If I'm Dana White, I would go to a guy like Derek Lewis right now, who's kind of waiting to see if he's going to be able to have a championship match. And, you know, Derek Lewis is motivated by the money. I'll give you $3 million to go and fight this guy. Derek Lewis would knock him out in the first round, rip off his leg and feed it to him. And then we wouldn't have to hear this nonsense about Logan Paul thinking that he's a guy that can fight and do all of this stuff, because he can't. Work your way up. If you want people to have this vibe that you're a great fighter, work your way up. The Ultimate Fighter is the way to go for him, but he probably won't do that because all of the fights, he won't own them, and he won't be able to talk about it on his channel. Maybe they could come up with something. Woodley versus Jake. Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to think about that. I don't understand why you're giving Logan Paul a pedestal to make himself appear that he is equal with these guys. Like, I'm not a Mayweather guy, but in the end, Mayweather, you can make an argument, it's a top 10 fighter of all time. This guy, because of his social media stuff, got into the ring with a guy that has never lost a fight. That's insane. Guys have been working their butts off to get an opportunity. Now I'm just going to run my mouth on YouTube and talk about my house and eventually get myself a spot. Put him in the Ultimate Fighter, or let him fight somebody like Derek Lewis, who'll knock him into next month, and then we don't have to hear his mouth. He'll knock his teeth out. I firmly believe that. 803-978-1832. Jerome says it's only a matter of time before the brother gets rocked, but they are shocking so far. Look, the fact that he was able to go 8 rounds with Mayweather, you got to give him credit for that. Maybe Mayweather carried him. I don't know. But people talking about Mayweather robbed people, no. If you were stupid enough to pay for that fight, then that's on you. You're the dummy. You're the idiot. You want to watch Chad Johnson get in the ring and see what Ocho Cinco can do? That's on you. All right. Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports. Of course, you can follow him at Clemson Sports. He's always got his stuff together. Here we go.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
By the way, the Swan was running his mouth to me yesterday on Clemson Sports Talk, thinking that I was not listening. He called me a paper Phoenix Suns fan, even though I've been a Suns fan for as long as I can possibly remember. Got a Dan Marley jersey hanging in my office. So let's put that out there and put that to bed. Okay? Phoenix Suns tonight will be playing the Denver Nuggets on the road. They look to take a 3-0 series lead there. Lawton is just upset because he has cried so many tears because his awful Lakers lost. And now they got to figure out how to build a winning franchise with a guy that's 37 years old that's got a 50-year-old NBA body and another guy that can't get out of street clothes. So there's that. Anyway, Lawton is a good guy, but he supports a crummy team that's sitting home as a loser, as my Suns put them out. Be sure to watch the Suns tonight. Follow me on Twitter, Matt Rob Sounds Good. We'll be back at it on Monday. This is The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, you guys are awesome over there. Thank you guys over there. Appreciate it. No, there's not. There's not a photo of me wearing a Gamecock shirt on the internet. I can absolutely assure you of that. If it is, it's Photoshop and it is not real. If you could send that to me, though, so I can laugh at it, but it's not me. There is a photo of Kale wearing Jackpot wearing a Clemson hat. That's out there. Go look for that. All right, y'all. Take care. We'll see you guys later on. You guys are awesome. Thanks for watching.